Researching Teaching and Learning 2, Assessment 3, by Ellen, Carly, Brianna, and Georgia. As teachers, we have identified an issue with getting our students to be actively involved in group work in our classrooms. As researchers, we have established a research question to help us improve our practice. We want to know what strategies effectively engage students in group work within the secondary English classroom. In order to answer this question, we have developed 4 smaller action research projects focusing on group size, composition, students' perspectives on group work, and the effects of teacher-student relationships on group work.
All 4 literature reviews found a common link in the 2 seminal theories that underpin the use of group work in the classroom. Piaget's constructivist theory of learning emphasised the need for students to collaborate with other students in order to develop higher-order thinking and reasoning skills. Similarly, Vygotsky found interactions with an adult or capable peer would encourage students to achieve the upper limits of proximal development. Piaget and Vygotsky's theoretical perspectives initiated discussions for group work within the education system and influenced modern research. Each of our literature reviews were collated to highlight many similar concepts that cross the diverse areas of secondary student group work and collaboration that was researched between our group members. Within the literature, we found that the academic literature enhanced the knowledge surrounding our topic and gave us greater focus for areas that had significant information in the field of group work, as well as highlighting gaps within the literature that did not detail key findings within the areas of group work within the English secondary classroom in Australian schools. The literature also highlighted heterogeneous groups were seen as being the most effective group compositions for student collaboration and enhanced self and group efficacy. Within the study, t-tests suggested that heterogeneous low students obtained a higher mean gain than homogeneous students, and high ability students in the homogeneous groups outperformed the high ability students in the heterogeneous groups. The study also highlighted that the heterogeneous group was preferable as students were able to engage in Vygotsky's theory of proximal development by working with knowledgeable peers to develop their knowledge. Additionally, lower ability students within homogeneous groups were less likely to engage in effective and productive collaboration within group work, were not given an equitable voice within group tasks. Student choice within group compositions had minimal focus in the literature. Mitchell found that student choice encouraged greater socialisation with peers, was time-consuming, and that students deemed themselves less capable than the teacher in establishing effective groups. Cheng also analysed student choice for group compositions and similarly found that students were more engaged in socialising and social loafing when grouped with their friends. Literature reviews also highlighted that developing positive teacher-student experiences and relationships can have an instrumental effect on student engagement. It was also highlighted that monitoring students via formative and summative assessments as well as social skills and dialogue enhances the teacher's understanding of their students. This direction within the literature and focus within group for successful collaborations within the classroom has direct links to the AITSL standards and teachers needing to effectively be able to know their students and how they learn to support student learning.
Overall, we found that there was a distinct lack of data that referred specifically to Australian high school students in the English classroom. Many research articles focused on schools overseas, students in tertiary education, students in online learning environments, as well as being unclear on group sizes and compositions and providing insufficient recommendations for improved practice. Collectively, these findings informed our research design.
Before beginning our action research projects, it was important to consider the ethical implications of our studies. The 3 key considerations for conducting ethical research are defined by Hammersley as minimizing harm, protecting privacy, and respecting autonomy. As such, it was of utmost significance that our research was safe and inobtrusive, with optional participation, and that all information be made anonymous before publishing.
3 different types of methods used within the research include surveys, interviews, and observations. Each strategy was focused on either student or teacher participation and perspectives. Each strategy was carried out in a secondary English setting, either the classroom or a staff room. 3 out of 4 strategies were not specific to a stage of learning, however, 1 focused on the stage 6 setting. For each strategy, a range of different public secondary school demographics were used. For example, low socioeconomic status schools and middle class schools from various areas.
These surveys were completed by current English teachers who had consented to participate in the study. A Google Forms survey was sent via email to all participants, along with an explanation of the study and an invitation to discuss any questions. This method was chosen as it is quick, unobtrusive, and completely anonymous. The survey consisted of 7 multiple-choice and open-ended questions about their use and perception of group work in their classrooms. Answers to the open-ended questions were collected and analysed to identify patterns. This analysis consisted of an initial round of coding to identify key ideas in the responses, before extrapolating recurrent and overarching concepts within the data. During this action research project, all respondents said that they used group work in the classroom at least a few times per month, and all believed that group size did affect student engagement and completion of work. As such, this research is extremely relevant to the field. A majority of teachers surveyed preferred small groups of 3 to 4 students when conducting group work in the English classroom. However, there was some conflicting views about the effectiveness of student pairs. Many teachers focused on the fact that small groups were a metaphorical middle ground for cooperation and independent work, as students had to rely on others as well as complete their own section of the work. They also felt that small groups allowed students the best opportunity to share and contribute. Engagement was another key concern for teachers, with multiple respondents stating that larger groups gave students greater opportunities to talk and engage in other off-task activities because they knew other students in their group would finish the work for them. Classroom management was another prevalent theme, with many teachers finding classes easier to control when split into smaller groups.
Prior to the completion of the observations, students were provided with relevant information about the research and were issued consent forms to be signed by their parents. 20 of the 26 students returned the consent forms, and 6 students who had not consented to the research were not included in the study. 3 observations were conducted within the Stage 4 Year 7 English classroom over a 3-week period to ensure students were assessed at the same time period and day. This enabled greater management of the independent variable of time and allowed the researcher to gather accurate data on group compositions within the sample population. Each observation focused on either imposed homogeneous groups and heterogeneous groups or student choice groups. Field notes were used by the teacher to gather information about the interactions of the group work conducted in class and were also analysed by a series of codes. Data from the observations found that the heterogeneous group were more productive, collaborative, and produced higher quality group work than the homogeneous group and student choice groups. The homogeneous group was more beneficial for higher ability students than lower ability students. Student choice groups saw greater prevalence of disengagement and socialisation with their peers. It was also shown that higher ability students were more likely to become leaders within heterogeneous and student choice groups. However, in the homogeneous groups, higher ability students seeked leadership over working collaboratively and sharing an equitable workload with their peers. The field notes and subsequent codes were then segregated into categories that were prevalent across the 3 observations. These included collaboration, disengagement, equal contributions, and work quality. Each of these categories were triangulated with other methods used to establish the larger themes of the research project.
Prior to the completion of the surveys, students were provided with relevant information about the research and were issued consent forms for their parents to return. 10 of the 12 students in the class returned the consent forms, and therefore 2 students who had not consented to the research were not included in the study. This study found that students suggested that groups with more than 4 people or less than 3 were not effective in achieving a common goal. Students were also less likely to engage in group work if they did not get to pick their own groups. Students only valued group work if they saw tangible and individual benefits. Student perception on the importance of effectiveness of group work differed significantly, which makes it hard to effectively implement group work in a Stage 6 English setting. Students identified various influences on the efficacy of group work, for example, friendships and relationships, the difficulty of the task, and the group composition. Students' perception on the group composition had a significant impact on their engagement in the task. These findings and subsequent codes were then segregated into categories that were prevalent across the surveys. These included collaboration, value, equal contributions, and work quality. Each of these categories were triangulated with the other methods used within the larger research project to establish the larger themes of the research project.
These interviews were completed by 5 current English teachers who were all at different stages of their teaching profession. The survey consisted of 12 yes or no or open-ended questions that asked the interviewee to use their prior teaching experience and knowledge to answer the questions about their connection between knowing their students and its relation to engagement in group work. The analysis consisted of an initial round of coding to identify key ideas in the responses, then further analysis to find the overarching concepts within the data. The data showed that the group work is an essential pedagogical approach in the classroom as well as provides the students with the ability to tap into numerous skills. The participants also expressed that group work directly links to the zone of proximity, which is Vygotsky's theory. They also believe that it is vital for their collaborative skills as well as their skills that they need for the 21st century and beyond the classroom. Furthermore, they believed it is beneficial for students to collaborate with people who have different personalities, views, and friendship groups, as it further enhances their communication and problem-solving skills. The data showed that all teachers believe that in order to create success in both group work and academic ability, it is vital to have a deep knowledge and understanding of your students and their needs. Furthermore, that this success is created when teachers choose the groups in which the students will be working in. In relation to keeping the students engaged, the participants had used multiple strategies of success. These included timed activities, student incentives, competition rewards, explicit scaffolds, and positive reinforcements. Overall, the participants believe that group work plays a vital role in the classroom and that each used this pedagogical approach at least 2 to 3 times a week in order to enhance student engagement and academic success. After conducting our research and analysing our data, we found considerable differences as well as significant overlaps in our findings, codes and categories, as shown in the previous slides. From these codes and categories, we extrapolated our 5 key themes that were present in multiple sets and cut across the data to give an accurate portrayal of the overall findings. Our first overarching theme is ability grouping. Our data found that the groups were more successful when students are placed in groups according to their academic abilities, specifically when they are placed in heterogeneous groups where students of mixed ability are able to contribute in ways that are suitable for them. A majority of students surveyed agreed that this was the best group composition. Furthermore, the teachers interviewed believed that these groups selected by the teacher were more successful than student choice. The next theme is student behaviour. Respondents and observers in all studies made reference to behaviour during group work. Overall, our data found that student behaviour was effective depending on the size and composition of the group and the environment of the classroom. Lastly, the theme of group size was also evident across multiple studies, and our data found that teachers perceived a difference in student engagement depending on the size of the group. Teachers and students agreed on a preferred group size of 3 to 4 students.
The Action Research Project is a continuous cycle that aims to improve teacher practice. In this Action Research Project, we have demonstrated this by evaluating an issue we had experienced within a school, choosing to focus on collaboration and group work in the English secondary classroom and establishing our research question. Research current literature for group work and effective collaboration within secondary schools. Found that there was a gap within the literature for group work within secondary Australian schools and lack of research for group work within the English classroom. Conducted research within the field of group work within the secondary classroom, focusing on observation, surveys, and interviews as methods for gathering data. Synthesised the findings across each method to make recommendations for change that will improve the secondary English classroom. The next step in the Action Research Project is to adjust the theory and develop the next step in the research.
So what can teachers implement within their classrooms to improve student collaboration within the English secondary classroom setting? 1. They can use small group sizes. 2. Implement heterogeneous and mixed ability groups. 3. Create positive relationships that are key for collaborative learning and engagement. And 4. Teacher-imposed groups are more effective for group compositions. What more can be done to improve student collaboration and group work within the English secondary classroom? There needs to be further practical research into group work using a larger population sample across multiple stages within the English secondary classrooms.